Hi, my sweet nephews. I hope you're doing well. I'm excited to read the next chapter of The Adventures of Buster Bear. And so, what was happening last time? Oh, right. Buster Bear was going to go berry picking, and someone overheard him talking to himself. Who was that? Sammy J. So, what is going to happen this time? Chapter 18. Somebody else goes berrying. Who do you think it's going to be? Shall we guess? All right, let's find out. Isn't it funny how two people will often think of the same thing at the same time, and neither one know that the other is thinking of it? That is just what happened the day that Buster Bear first thought of going berrying. While he was walking around in the Green Forest talking to himself about how hungry he was for some berries and how sure he was that there must be some up in the old pasture, someone else was thinking about berries and about the old pasture too. "Will you make me a berry pie if I will get the berries tomorrow?" asked Farmer Brown's boy of his mother. That reminds me of Grandma's yummy berry pies. I like those. I know you guys do too. All right. Of course, Mrs. Brown promised that she would, and so that night Farmer Brown's boy went to bed very early, that he might get up early in the morning, and all night long he dreamed of berries and berry pies. He was awake even before jolly, round, red Mr. Sun thought it was time to get up, and he was all ready to start for the old pasture when the first jolly little sunbeams came dancing across the Green Meadows. He carried a big tin pail, and in the bottom of it, wrapped up in a piece of paper, was a lunch, for he meant to stay until he filled that pail, if it took all day. Now the old pasture is very large. It lies at the foot of the big mountain, and even extends a little way up the big mountain. There is room in it for many people to pick berries all day without even seeing each other, unless they roam about a great deal. You see, the bushes grow very thick there, and you cannot see very far in any direction. Jolly, round, red Mr. Sun had climbed a little way up in the sky by the time Farmer Brown's boy reached the old pasture, and was smiling down on all the Great World, and all the Great World seemed to be smiling back. Farmer Brown's boy started to whistle, and then he stopped. "If I whistle," thought he, "everybody will know just where I am, and will keep out of sight, and I never can get acquainted with folks if they keep out of sight." You see, Farmer Brown's boy was just beginning to understand something that Peter Rabbit and the other little people of the Green Meadows and the Green Forest learned almost as soon as they learned to walk, that if you don't want to be seen, you mustn't be heard. So he didn't whistle as he felt like doing, and he tried not to make a bit of noise as he followed an old cow path towards a place where he knew the berries grew thick and oh so big, and all the time he kept his eyes wide open, and he kept his ears open too. That is how he happened to hear a little cry, a very faint little cry. If he had been whistling, he wouldn't have heard it at all. He stopped to listen. He never had heard a cry just like that before. At first he couldn't make out just what it was or where it came from. But one thing he was sure of, and that it was a cry of fright. He stood perfectly still and listened with all his might. There it was again. "Help! Help! Help!" And it was very faint and sounded terribly frightened. He waited a minute or two, but heard nothing more. Then he put down his pail and began a hurried look here, there, and everywhere. He was sure that it had come from somewhere on the ground, so he peered behind bushes and peeped behind logs and stones, and then Just as he had about given up hope of finding where it came from, he went around a little turn in the old cow path, and there, right in front of him, was little Mr. Gartersnake. And what do you think he was doing? Well, I don't like to tell you, but he was trying to swallow one of the children of Sticky Toes the tree toad. Of course, Farmer Brown's boy didn't let him. He made little Mr. Gartersnake set Master Sticky Toes free and held Mr. Gartersnake until Master Sticky Toes was safely out of reach. That's the end of that chapter. That was a very short chapter. All right, let's read another one. So, chapter 19, Buster Bear Has a Fine Time. Do you think Buster Bear and Farmer Brown's boy are going to meet again? Make your guess. I'm going to guess yes, because that's what happens in another book I read. So that's my guess. What's your guess? All right, let's keep that in mind and see what our guesses come true. All right, Buster Bear Has a Fine Time. Buster Bear was having the finest time he had had since he came down from the great woods to live in the Green Forest. To be sure, he wasn't in the Green Forest now, but he wasn't far from it. He was in the Old Pasture, one edge of which touches one edge of the Green Forest. And where do you think he was in the Old Pasture? Why, right in the middle of the biggest patch of the biggest blueberries he had ever had seen in all his life. Now, if there is any one thing that Buster Bear had rather have above another, it is all the berries he can eat, unless it be honey. Nothing can quite equal honey in Buster's mind. But next to honey, give him berries. He isn't particular what kind of berries, raspberries, blackberries, or blueberries. Either kind will make him perfectly happy. My, but these are good, he mumbled in his deep, grumbly voice. And as he sat on his haunches, stripping off the berries greedily, his little eyes twinkled with enjoyment, and he didn't mind at all if now and then he got leaves and some green berries in his mouth with the big, ripe ones. He didn't try to get them out. Oh, my, no. He just chomped them all up together and patted his stomach from sheer delight. Now Buster had reached the Old Pasture just as jolly round red Mr. Sun had crept out of bed, and he had fully made up his mind that he would be back in the Green Forest before Mr. Sun had climbed very far up in the blue, blue sky. You see, big as he is, and strong as he is, Buster Bear is very shy and bashful, and he has no desire to meet Farmer Brown or Farmer Brown's boy or any other of those two-legged creatures called men. It seems funny, but he actually is afraid of them, and he had a feeling that he was a great deal more likely to meet one of them in the Old Pasture than deep in the Green Forest. So when he started to look for berries, he made up his mind that he would eat what he could in a great hurry and get back to the Green Forest before Farmer Brown's boy was more than out of bed. But when he found those berries, he was so hungry that he forgot his fears and everything else. They tasted so good that he just had to eat and eat and eat. Now, you know that Buster is a very big fellow, and it takes a lot to fill him up. He kept eating and eating and eating, and the more he ate, the more he wanted. You know how it is. So he wandered from one patch of berries to another in the Old Pasture and never once thought of the time. Somehow, time is the hardest thing in the world to remember when you are having a good time. Jolly round red Mr. Sun climbed higher and higher in the blue, blue sky. He looked down on all the great world and saw all that was going on. He saw Buster Bear in the Old Pasture and smiled as he saw what a perfectly glorious time Buster was having. And he saw something else in the Old Pasture that made his smile still broader. He saw Farmer Brown's boy filling a great tin pail with blueberries, and he knew that Farmer Brown's boy didn't know that Buster Bear was anywhere about, and he knew that Buster Bear didn't know that Farmer Brown's boy was anywhere about, and somehow he felt very sure that he would see something funny happen if they should chance to meet. Maybe I'm right. Mumbled Buster Bear with his mouth full as he moved along to another patch of berries, and then he gave a little gasp of surprise and delight. Right in front of him was a shiny thing just full of the finest, biggest, bluest berries. There were no leaves or green ones there. What is it? Buster blinked his greedy little eyes rapidly and looked again. No, he wasn't dreaming. They were real berries, and all he had got to do was to help himself. Buster looked sharply at the shiny thing that held the berries. It seemed perfectly harmless. He reached out a big paw and pushed it gently. It tipped over and spilled out a lot of the berries. Yes, it was perfectly harmless. Buster gave a little sigh of pure happiness. He would eat those berries to the last one, and then he would go home to the green forest. That's the end of the chapter. We have to wait to see if they meet. All right, next time we'll read chapter 20. There's a lot of chapters, aren't there? Buster Bear carries off the pail of Farmer Brown's boy. Wow. We'll see what happens. I'll see you next time. Bye.